I talk about, or I write, be sincere and truthful. But be sincere and truthful in the mind, or be sincere and truthful from the very core of my being, or the expression from the mind may look right, but in reality, it may be just like a picture drawn onto the paper, not the real substance. There's that subtle difference, very subtle, but there's a big difference in between. It's like the connection between the brain and the heart that I talk about. The mind or the brain can fool us, thinking that whatever happens in the mind is correct. But we need to keep checking, as if to check the sincerity and truthfulness of that meaning. It's like a kid's being told what to say and they say it, but they don't mean it. So it has to be expressed and lived with that. And this is subtle, but again, the difference is so big. I just realized it's about 3 o'clock in the morning because I noticed my mind was not as settled. So I decided to sit and meditate. I used to do this more often in the past. For whatever the reason, I stopped doing it. When I had this awakening experience, I wanted to maintain that sense of being liberated, be alert, be connected. So I keep monitoring the time and how much I spend and how the quality was. And that's the beginner's mind. I wanted to be sincerely, truthfully practicing it. The reason is that I can easily lose it. I know it. Because to be awakened, you need to be lost to be awakened. And how we lose it? Because the mind takes over, the brain takes over, as if that's everything. But I often think about this example that if you are occupied in the mind, we may not know what's going on in our stomach or body. Bodily sensation may be lost. I use the word biofeedback. We are alive, so aliveness is there if you are awakened. And that you can find when you meditate. Some may not, but I know in my case, I could feel the vast aliveness throughout my whole body. Of not being aware is that your stomach is hurting, but you don't notice it. Therefore, you may develop ulcer because your mind is occupied so much to do things in the world, in the business, whatever the case is. And you forget about the sensation that it exists all the time. Sensation of your aliveness, your being, your living. And once you lose it, that's the disconnect between what's in the mind and the brain to what I call the heart or the body. So you develop ulcer or maybe cancer. So the sincerity and truthfulness is connected to such physiological part of the phenomena. It's not the concept. There's a sensation, the feeling of aliveness. Brain doesn't have pain nerve, as I understand. So you don't feel the pain if something happened in the brain. But the brain is part of the whole living being. People talk about artificial intelligence and attaching the USB to your brain part that you can enhance your brain activity. No matter what you do with that, the connection to your liveliness may not be there. As brains are developed over years of evolution to be useful, there's a function of that to use it. But living being has that lively sensation that exists. The example that I felt when I came out of the surfing after taking shower and cold shower in the sun, I felt the whole body was vibrating, and that was the sensation of happiness. The body is feeling the happiness. Brain has certain happiness. The dopamine or some hormone may induce some of that, and maybe the drug can induce something like that. But that's not natural. If the brain is connected to the being of whole body and the whole cells are activated and awakened, then the brain can connect to that sensation. Even though the brain may still behave like a machine, there's that connection that we can have. So there's the expression of cold brain, cold mind, away from the compassionate, warm heart that we have. I think Dalai Lama said something to the book I wrote in his foreword about warm heart. I don't remember exactly, but something to do with the selfishness and the stuff I can put into the description of this video to remind myself what he means. So let's be simple, be grounded, connected to a being, liveliness, warm heart, living being, and the brain, mind is connected to such core being of who we are. In the middle of the night, everything is quiet. You go deep into the samadhi, calm and quiet mind, connected to the being. Perhaps I stopped doing it because in the mind or some research or internet said you need to sleep so much time. There's a scientific evidence of whatever it may mean. But again, don't just interpret by the mind or the brain. so that we see through the truth of being connected to the core of our being. And if we lose that, the mind starts to walk on its own, away from that core being of us being alive. We need to engage the whole cells of our being. Well, the science may tell that even the heart transplant of the lung and many organs may be replaced by the machine. I don't know that discussion and what happens when we become like that. As the technology may advance, but the aliveness has to be there. Aliveness is the moment to moment happening every moment. And that's the connection to our root, the core being, and the warm heart that Dalai Lama mentioned about. He mentioned about the ego, selfishness when he mentioned, I remember now. But that's again is the small part of the mind play without engaging the whole existence. It's missing the point of being alive. So be sincere and truthful. Let me have that really sincere and truthful, not from the mind, but in practice, in my whole being. That's what I promise myself to work on. Well, I said that's something I promised to work on, but actually, you cannot work on it. You have to be there. Work on, of course, in terms of the direction from the mind, but that even have to be gone when you are in the state of being. The mind has to be empty, and you are just sincere and truthful as you are, as I am. It's not the interpretation of the mind. It has to go beyond. Again, the gap may be subtle, but it's big. So the training for the mind to be like that requires a tremendous amount of dedication to be truthful and sincere. I'll keep working on it until the I am gone and working it does not exist. So I will be sincere and truthful.